Don't drop 9 grand on something like this.
Discoloring the camper.
But yeah, windows suck. Would I buy this camper again? And the answer is
3 years, over 100 nights in my Go Fast camper. We've had a lot of experience in this camper, so today I'm sharing my 3-year review. The pros, the cons, how it's held up, and the big question, would I buy it again?
Before we get started, a little bit of information on the truck itself. This is a 2012 Nissan Frontier 5-foot bed. 164,000 miles on it at this point. We've taken it on endless adventures, and it's been a great truck. The first pro on my list that I want to mention is this camper has given us the ability to travel quick overnight trips easily, longer extended road trips where we're living out of the truck for extended periods of time from like 7 to 10 days. And so this type of setup has just made it that much easier to do. We love road tripping around the Southeast area. Having a camper like this definitely has made it easier and cheaper, by the way, because camping out at campgrounds or dispersed camping, you save a lot of money from not having to rent Airbnbs or rent out hotels or, find different accommodations. This camper has just made it easy versus our rooftop tent, which is what we had for, a good couple years prior to us upgrading to the camper itself. It's just a lot more comfortable to live out of for multiple and extended trips. So number 1, easy setup and takedown. Wedge tents are probably the easiest types of tents that you can utilize. From one side, you can set it up and take down. Setting it up takes about 3 seconds and taking it down takes about 10 seconds. Even if we were just sleeping quickly overnight somewhere, we don't even have to unpack the truck bed. We could just, pop the tent and then just climb into the tent from a panel and go to sleep for the night real quick. So it just makes it really easy. It makes it really nimble for us to kind of just move around and go. The next pro I want to mention is that you have the ability to hang out in the truck bed whenever the weather is crappy, which was a huge plus and something I really liked and something I was really looking forward to upgrading to a camper like this. All of the floors move, so you can stand up fully as well, so it's easier to change, stand up and hang out in the truck bed, which we've definitely done quite a few times whenever the weather is really bad or when it's really cold outside. That's probably one of the other biggest pros. So the ability to easily set up the tent and the ability to stand up and hang out in the truck bed whenever the weather is bad. And being able to fully stand up, you can easily change your clothes, which is a great pro. Next pro I will mention is the movable panels. The panels give you a lot of flexibility for different bed configurations based on your needs. Single versus double with a dog. I do have a love-hate relationship with these panels though. They're easy to use whenever I'm by myself, but whenever we're with the entire family, if you got the wife and the dog, multiple people in here, it definitely is a little bit harder to maneuver around with the panels. You kind of have to be strategic in how you do things. We kind of get ready in here at night one at a time. Got to put the dog up in the tent. You just got to be a little bit more cognizant, but overall, my love-hate relationship with them. Overall, as a pro, I do love the movable panels because you can, utilize a bunch of different bed configurations. From me being by myself, utilizing the truck in bunk mode versus, using the full bed for whenever me and the wife are here and the dog. It's convenient. I do like it, but you just have to be cognizant. So yeah, it does get a little bit cramped whenever it's not just you. But it works perfectly if you're by yourself. The next pro on my list is we've done our fair share of ground tenting. We did a lot of ground tenting even before we moved into our rooftop tent phase of our camping journey. But one thing that we really like is we love sleeping above the ground. And so there's a lot of security that we feel whenever we're sleeping on top of a truck, especially from animals, people, in comparison to being in a ground tent and being right on the ground and available for a bear burrito, perhaps. Not that there's any bears down here, but when we were in Alaska, that was definitely something on our minds when we would ground tent. And so we do feel a lot of security by being up off of the ground, and I do think that is a big pro. In addition, the GFC does have all of these lockable panels as well, which is great. That is a huge pro and a great thing for gear security, and you can also lock yourself in the camper as well whenever you're sleeping. So there's a little hook right here that allows you to lock yourself in the camper whenever you're going to bed at night. So great security in the camper, which I really do like. In comparison to our rooftop tent where it sat on the truck bed like this, and so whenever you had gear inside, I mean, people could technically just kind of you know, grab gear from the side because it wasn't fully enclosed. So having a camper like this that's enclosed and lockable, it's just great for gear security. So the next pro I'm going to mention is that you can store some bedding inside of the tent. We used to be able to store a lot more bedding, but we have recently, well, within the last year, we've upgraded the mattress up here with a 2-inch foam. We can't store as much stuff in here anymore. So this is what we are able to store in here now. With the 2-inch bed, 2-inch foam insert. So what it looks like looks like this, but you have this foam on it, and then we have these bigger sheets. This does not allow us to add any other bedding up here. The only thing we store up here now is 2 pillows, which these are full-size pillows, but you'll notice that they're not, you know, they're not very like stiff or anything. So these fit in here, and then we also have 2 blow-up pillows. So these are like these giant Sea to Summit pillows. We love these pillows, and any gear that I mention in here, I will leave a link to them down below if you guys are interested, but we've had these pillows for a couple years now. What I really like is that you can blow them up whenever you need to use them, and they store, you know, perfectly inside of this flat folding tent. Prior to us upgrading the mattress though, we were able to store a double sleeping bag up here, which it was a packable double sleeping bag though. And so if you're wanting to store any type of gear up in the tent, my recommendation is to look for packable gear, like backpacking type of gear, where you can compress it down a lot and it'll just help you fold down the tent a little bit easier, because it is a bit cramped up here. I'm not gonna lie. Even if I don't have any pillows in here, closing it with the 1-inch foam and all of the tent fabric, it's, you know, you kind of have to be very strategic in like folding your sides in and everything. And you'll notice here, that's as much room as you have to store. There's not a lot of space, you know, so you got to be strategic with the gear that you select to keep up here. So that's why we actually carry around a rucksack with us now for all of our additional sleeping gear, like our blankets and stuff, and our sleeping bag. Prior to us upgrading the mattress, we would store literally all of our bedding up here with no problem. I'll talk about the bedding more during our cons, but the bed is a little bit stiff. So it was fine for me. I'm a back sleeper, but for Carly, she's a side sleeper. So having the additional comfort, you know, on the bed is definitely nice, especially if you are doing extended road trips like we do. So that's kind of why we decided to upgrade to something a little bit more comfortable. So the tent material in here has been pretty solid. There has been no rips or tears with the primary tent itself. The only issues that we have had are with some of these ironed seams. So over here, you'll notice I had to repair this right here, ironed on seams, versus these ones. These are actually like stitched in. So these bigger seams, no issues there. It's really just the ironed on stuff like that, where you can see it kind of like coming off. I did put some glue there to try and help it, but you can see that it's coming off. These front windows are the only ones that we've had issues with, but these bigger, larger windows, no issues there. The only thing I will mention is that they have been sagging just a little bit. So you'll notice like right here, so that is pretty much the only thing I've seen where you're kind of, the tent is sagging just a little bit. For 3 years of usage, we've used this thing a lot. It makes sense to me that it's sagging a little bit. Like, I honestly cannot remember if that was like that when I first bought the tent, but you can see it's kind of like, I don't know, like even like the seams here kind of doing some weirdness here. It's just not as taut, I guess. The next pro on my list is you can still use your truck as a truck. Not that I utilize this option very, very often these days, but when we were moving, it was a great option. Whenever Carly wants me to pick up furniture from Facebook Marketplace, having your truck being able to be used as a truck is still a pro. And if you are moving like larger things, technically you can strap stuff to the roof of the GFC. I think it has like a weight rating of like, I'm not even sure, this much. So the GFC itself is very solid. So you can store stuff up there, like if you have like big pieces of wood. You can also detach some of the panels as well. So you can haul around like larger pieces of wood as well. So use your truck like a truck. The next pro I will mention is the camper itself has been very, very solid. So no complaints there. This camper is rated for like Baja conditions and speeds and terrain. So this thing is solid. When GFC installed this, I have never taken it off, and it has never moved off of the truck bed. So the construction is great. It's also only 300 pounds ish. And so for a mid-sized truck like ours, I mean, you don't really need much to haul this thing around on your truck bed. So overall, the frame of the camper is very solid. The camper hasn't moved off the truck since GFC installed it about 3 years ago. I've never taken it off the truck myself. Some people have asked me that, but I don't know, like, why would I ever take it off? Number one, logistically, it just seems like a pain. And then you'd have to, like, you know, take these off, which, you know, I feel like they've bolted the camper on to, you know, certain specs. So why would I want to mess with it? And it's kind of hard to do. You need 4 people to try and like pick it up, or you need some kind of pulley system, which my truck does not even fit in our garage. So no, I've never taken this thing off. The only issue that we have seen in the camper in terms of like construction is the back panel right here. This particular corner, this back panel was coming off. Like it was like moving. This panel was moving. And what sucks is that the screw that this back panel is connected to, it's really hard to get back there. It's like, you know, like a 1-inch gap. So you can't really, you have to take the camper fully off for you to screw that back panel screw back on. And I can actually see it. If you like look back here, you can see the screw kind of like coming off, and the screw is a proprietary screw as well. So it's not like a standard Phillips head or a standard flathead. It's like a proprietary screw that GFC uses. So even if we were to get the camper off, I don't have the tool to actually screw it back on. But shout out to Jags over at Packout Camper, because he helped seal the back panel back on, glued everything on, and now the back panel is solid, so no complaints there, which is cool. So shout out to Jags and Packout Campers. So back to the pros of the camper. One really nice pro is that this thing is pretty low profile. It makes it so that you're a lot more nimble on the trail, easier to maneuver as well, versus if you imagine like a larger camper that sticks up and is really heavy. You know, you can kind of feel that on the truck whenever you're trying to move around and you're hitting trails. When I bought this 3 years ago, I paid $6,800 for it. And Go Fast Campers were the only vendors that had a camper available for 5-foot 2012 Nissan Frontiers. So that really limited the camper vendors that I could look at. Frontiers don't get a lot of love in this space, unfortunately. It's getting better these days. There's a lot more options, but back then when I was looking, not a thing. So that's one big pro, is that Go Fast Camper did outfit the Nissan Frontiers. My Frontier is actually the 4th Frontier that Go Fast Camper installed a camper on. My unit number is 1674, and there are now over 8,000 units out in the wild. So that's a big pro. They definitely opened up the doors for Frontiers, and being one of very, very few back when I was looking that, you know, you could outfit a camper for the Frontiers, which is great. And the last thing I will say is their customer service and support. Every time I've had to reach out to Go Fast Camper, their support has been very quick to respond. No complaints there. I had to reach out to them regarding the window upstairs where it was, you know, falling apart. So they mailed me a replacement kit for it, which was great, and they were really fast to respond. So, you know, no complaints. I have been hearing rumors though that their customer service has been lacking. I think because of their higher demand, they've just been, you know, kind of behind in their customer support department. What I've seen in emails is that they are bulking up their customer service, their number of people that are working in their customer service. So I think you should be able to get help a lot faster, but that's just what I've heard. When they came out with the GFC V2 Pro, I did reach out to them and asked them if they would be interested in sponsoring a video for me to get an upgraded tent fabric, because all the cons that I'm going to mention to you guys here momentarily, the V2 Pro definitely addresses a lot of those, but this version of the camper, there's a ton of them out there, you know, in the wild, because they just made this update just last year. So it's 2025. Yeah. So they made this upgrade late 2024. So there's a lot of campers out there with these same issues. You are able to upgrade the tent fabric yourself, but it's about, I want to say it's like $2,000, $2 or $3,000. And I'm just not willing to pay that much to, you know, upgrade my tent fabric. I'm just living with what we got, you know. But that option is there if you guys do have the older the older model. So I did reach out to them to ask if they had any interest in partnering for a video. I never heard back, unfortunately, but you know, I'm a small creator, so you know, whatever. Oh well. All right, so let's move into the cons of the camper. The first thing I'm going to mention is the camper is not weatherproof. It's only as weatherproof as your truck bed is weatherproof, which is something I did not realize until we were, you know, months in and we were using the camper a lot. We were seeing a lot of dirt and dust and water intrusion. So even prior to getting the Go Fast camper installed, I really should have like tested or like really inspected the truck bed to see how weatherproof it was, you know, fix up any holes and stuff. I've tried doing that a little bit thus far, but there's some big holes in the Frontier bed, unfortunately. And it's probably a big reason why I've never done a truck camper build in here yet. I just don't want to deal with like dust and you know, dirt and stuff that just keeps going into the build. And the truck bed is also rhino lined as well, so it's not like you can easily wipe off dirt and dust and stuff inside of there. Like the rhino line really like kills any type of like paper towels or like any type of shop towels that you're using on it to try and clean it. It's unfortunate, but something you know, that we've been living with. The next con on my list is the tent itself is not the most waterproof. We've been running into some rain over the last few weeks, and I'm sure you guys have seen some of the footage that I've put up for that. But essentially some of the biggest water leaks that we have whenever there's serious rain is right here at the front. So we'll get a good amount of rain like right here. It gets all wet right at the front of the tent over here. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because water's pooling like behind the tent material, so it's just kind of coming up, or if it's, you see how like the tent is sagging a little bit. So I don't know if it's just like water that's like getting right here and then it's just sitting and then it, you know, gets inside the bed over here. We also seen a little bit of water towards the front because obviously with rain, it's going to be running down that way. So we do get a little bit of water there. We live in the desert though. This has really honestly not been a huge issue for us. If we were in the PNW or somewhere wetter, it would definitely be a problem. I have heard people in the PNW or places that rain a little bit more, there is a gutter system of some sort that you can install on the GFC on the sides that help funnel water away from the tent whenever it is raining. But again, not something we deal with, so I've never, you know, I've never looked into that. But for sure, this tent is not waterproof. I have no idea why. Water perfectly pools, not pools, but it just gets the front of this panel wet and then the front of this panel wet right here that would sit right here. So something is not correct with the way water is shedding in the tent. It's not shedding away from the tent, it is shedding inside. So yeah, not waterproof. Huge con right there. While we are in the tent, you guys already know these bug screens, these windows make zero sense to me. Why the bug screen is on the inside, why you have to open the bug screen to open the window to let bugs in while you're opening this window, which you then need to crudely wrap the window up to open it, and it sucks. So let me show you guys. The windows are not ideal. I don't know what this, like the design just sucks. These are terrible. Probably one of my biggest cons on the camper tent itself. Okay, if I want to open this window, this is what I have to do. And you can't open the window halfway. You have to like fully, so these little carabiners at the top came with the tent. I have to move the carabiner to the inside. And then, so as I'm opening the bug screen, let's count how many bugs could actually get in while I'm doing this. And then I gotta close it back up. So we came from the rooftop tent space, right? We had a Smittybilt baseline rooftop tent. We had a Smittybilt tent. The Smittybilt window, all you had to do to open the window was do this. And then the bug screen was on the outside. So for some reason, these windows work fine. Open the window and you can, you know, get some nice breeze out here. But this side, I don't know why. Why did they do this? I'm not sure. but that is definitely one of the biggest cons for the tent. The windows and the bug screens suck. It's just bottom line. I will say though, the V2 Pro, their newest tent model, that addresses these window issues. These are just dumb. These carabiners make no sense to me. They only give you one carabiner per window too. So I've had to buy multiple carabiners so that you can, maybe pull up the bug net as well and the flap. All right, trash man's coming. So like I mentioned, we came from the rooftop tent world. Our $800 rooftop tent had a lot more features within the tent versus this $8,000 camper with tent attached. Number one, there is 0 hooks, 0 pouches, 0 anything inside of here to store your gear while you're sleeping. I don't know why. I have no idea. But our rooftop tent had all of that stuff. So little hooks, little like things that you can hang stuff with, pouches everywhere. But this tent has nothing. So everything that you see in here, minus the carabiners, are everything that we've added. So I ended up adding some additional pouches over here, added some felt to the top, because the next con I'm gonna mention is condensation up here can get pretty bad if you're in a place with a lot of humidity. And when you're sleeping in here with all of the windows closed, it can get wet. Like, we've woken up with drips on our faces while we're sleeping on this side of the tent, where literally just drips will fall onto our faces. So I installed kind of like a felt headliner here to help with soaking up some of that condensation. Added some pouches up here, added some more carabiners up here, because these are the only areas that you can hang stuff is off of these guys. I've also added some additional hooks over here. So these little D-ring hooks. Added a ton more carabiners everywhere. I put these D-hooks everywhere just to be able to hang stuff inside of here. So these are all just like held up by Velcro over here. Throwing D-hooks everywhere. That has definitely helped with being able to hang stuff and store stuff in here. With the condensation, whenever it is really humid out, the condensation can get pretty bad. There's no good way to vent out condensation. So what we've been doing to kind of combat condensation, again, we live in the desert. We don't run into condensation that often. So what we usually do is we keep a window open, always keep at least one window open. We also keep a fan running, and we've also been using these condensation packs as well, which have been working really, really well. So the condensation pack I'm showing you guys is this hanging bag. This condensation pack has been great. So these things hang inside the camper and they wick up the moisture. So we were in San Diego a couple weeks ago, super humid out there. We were camping out, and these little humidity packs helped a lot. You'll also notice that I added side storage. So all this is a bike pouch. So I got one on each side of the camper. This one stores all of our curtains for the back window and the front window. But I store them all in here. I also store like other things in here, like earplugs, hand warmers, stuff like that. And then I also have a bungee cord for our paper towel roll. But a lot of this stuff is all just stuff I got off of Amazon. Because the next con on my list is that GFC accessories are expensive. Like, I don't know why, but I saw one person selling some kind of like pouch for the Go Fast camper that you can hang on the roof. And this pouch was like $150. For a bag. So I was like, no thanks. All of this stuff in here, I just got it off Amazon, and I've just been, gluing and Velcroing things together, to be honest. So for the felt, I used double-sided tape to hang the felt. I use Velcro to hang these little net pouches, which these net pouches were like $10. So just to get a little bit of storage in here. Carabiners, $2. The D-rings, I got a pack of 16 for like $12. Standard bungee cord. Got some clips, chip clips, little humidifier pack, cheap. Got a really big box of these. This is a portable car trash bag. So these are like bike storage bags, and they just fit perfectly on the GFC cycling bike bags. So each one of those were like 15 bucks. Those are some of the accessories that we've added. The only GFC accessory that we did buy specifically were the poles to create some tent shade with your tent. So Another thing that the GFC was missing was, you know, shade poles, where you can like open up your flaps to make some shade. Our rooftop tent came with them. Each side had poles. GFC did not come with such a thing. So that was the only thing that I did buy aftermarket, because it just wasn't something that I could make or find on Amazon myself. So let me show you guys that. Let's set these up real quick. So these are the only things that I actually bought from a third-party vendor. Shout out to Shitco, Mark over there. These things are actually really made really well, actually, and I enjoy them. So do this, and now you got some shade. Get some airflow, you can get some nice views, and you are shaded from the sun, which is exactly we wanted to do with something like this. So what this came with were these like little bricks like this, so you can plug in the poles. It came with the poles, and it came with these clips, so that you can clip the pole on to the actual flap of the tent. So that is the only GFC accessory that I've bought from an official GFC accessory. I also bought some lock covers. Those were pretty cheap, actually. They're like 12 bucks from GFC. Oh, and I also bought something to grab onto the camper sides with. I bought this from a guy on Etsy, 3D Proto Lab. I'll leave a link to his stuff below, but I bought a handle for the outside and a handle for the inside. It's just a little bit easier to close the back whenever you got one of these versus having to use this. And sometimes you kind of grab onto this rubber, and I've had to repair this as well because the glue starts coming off. Those are some of the third-party accessories. Oh, I also had to, for the 270 awning, I also had to buy the GFC brackets for this thing so that I could mount the 270 awning, which the awning is a OVS 270 opening on the passenger side. The other accessory I did buy, and I bought this when I bought the camper with GFC, but it's the bull bars at the top. So these bull bars here, those are some additional accessories that we bought for the camper as well. Other than that, I think that's pretty much all the aftermarket stuff that we've bought in terms of accessories for the GFC. That is a huge con though, because these accessories were not cheap. The poles, I think, were about 120 bucks, which not too bad since it is kind of specialized. But man, if you start looking at like pouches and stuff, pouches like this for the panels, I don't know what people are thinking, but they're selling these pouches for like 80 bucks, like $100 just for these side pouches. This was a bike pouch. So that's just how I am. I'm pretty cheap. It's a shame that coming from a basic rooftop tent, the camper really doesn't have a lot of those just accessory areas where you got pouches, hooks, things to hang stuff with, just not part of the tent. And I don't know if that's just them, you know, wanting you to customize your camper to however you want, but I mean, our rooftop tent that was $800 had all these additional features and easy little things that you could have added during production, but this one had nothing like that, so that is a con for me. So because I added the tent poles to be able to create some shade, the flaps can get a little bit noisy. So that's my next con here, is the flaps can be noisy if you don't have them fully zippered down. Flaps can move, and because I have that little clip on the flaps, those things, you can hear them at night, so that is another con for me. And speaking of windows, you guys already know the bug windows make no sense, but the windows themselves all have a big gap at the bottom. I don't know why, but for some reason, the GFC decided not to put, you know, why can't you close your window all the way? Why is that a thing? So whenever we're camping, especially when it's really cold out, and if the wind is ever blowing at the perfect, you know, direction, you can literally just feel a breeze coming in underneath the tent windows. I don't know why that's a thing, but I never realized it until later when we were camping in colder weather, that the windows just have this big gap on them on the bottom. It's very strange. I don't know why this setup is like this, but I'm gonna take these down here. So like, why are the windows like this? Why is there no... So you essentially have 3 giant windows with holes at the bottom. So if it's cold, or if you have if it's really windy, I mean, you have a perfect big flap on the bottom of these windows for dust to get in, for, you know, cold air to get into your tent while you're sleeping. That's a huge con for me, unfortunately. I don't know, and I'm pretty sure that's probably also why rain intrudes from the outside inside the tent. I don't know. The construction of these windows they were dumb. I don't know. But again, the V2 Pro addresses a lot of these issues, and no, I'm probably never going to pay to upgrade to the V2 Pro. I'll just live with what we got. But yeah, windows suck. Another con is that, you know, with the flaps, if you don't have all the flaps zippered all the way down, you can get, you know, some wind noise whenever it's super windy out. You'll hear some flapping at night. The other issue too, though, is even if you have everything closed down, unfortunately, because the windows have a big hole at the bottom, you can still hear this. The bottom of the windows of the tent don't close, so you do hear some wind noise there as well. So one tip that I do have, though, if you are camping in high winds, is make sure that you face your camper towards the wind, so that on the wedge side of the tent, the wind just deflects right off, and that definitely helps a lot for whenever it is windy and you're trying to sleep. Or, you know, I've resorted to sleeping down here, which has been much more comfortable, to be honest, and I've gotten great nights of sleep sleeping down in the truck bed itself. Because it is a 5-foot truck bed, though, I do have to like sleep diagonal. Worth it for getting a nice night of sleep. So the next con on my list is the bed is a little bit stiff. So let me show you guys the bed without all of the everything on here. So this is like the panel raw. So this is how it came, or how the camper came. So you'll notice like it is pretty stiff, the bed itself. I mean, I think it's a 2-inch foam underneath this padding. So that's how big it is, but it is a little bit stiff. So the first, I think, like 2 years we had this camper, we've only recently upgraded to like the foam in the last year. Up until then, we were sleeping on this, and it never bothered me one bit. Carly is a side sleeper, though. She wasn't the most comfortable, but so that's why we ended up upgrading this. But at the same time, when we upgraded to the foam insert, now we can't store bedding up here. So it's kind of a pro and a con. A little bit more comfort, but then you have the hassle of having to carry your bedding in the truck bed now. So not everything fits up here. Pro and con right there, but yeah, the bed is a little bit stiff. And one thing I will mention, so I bought this foam insert and the sheets from Overlanding Soft Goods. I'll leave a link to their information down below, but I ended up buying, so I bought the bedding first, thinking that it came with the foam inserts. It did not. So the foam inserts were actually like, I think they were $60. And then for the covers, I think it was like another $90. So this was a $150 upgrade to upgrade the bed. So just FYI. I bought the foam first, thinking that it came with the sheets. And I was like, oh, that's a great deal. Foam and sheets for $60. And then the foam came to my doorstep, and I said, oh, this is just foam. So I ended up just having to go buy additional sheets. I used to have another pair of sheets that I bought from GFC directly. They were like the red ones that I used to use back in the day. They were a lot thinner, though, and so I will say these sheets are much better quality, and they've held up really well. There's no rips or tears or anything, and they fit the 2-inch insert foams really well. So no complaints there. So moving on to the outside of the truck and some of the cons I have here, because of the overhang over the cab, I do have a reduced miles per gallon, maybe like 2 or 3 miles less, and it can be pretty noisy from the inside whenever you're driving through really high wind conditions. So a couple of cons there, but I think that's pretty much the case for any camper that overhangs over your cab like this. So it's not specific to GFC or anything like that. So one additional con I have is I wish these panels were a little bit larger, or at least that you have the full width of the panel open to you so you can be able to load and offload gear. Obviously it's decently big, but the entirety of the panel would be nice to have open. That way you just have more space in here. But with these, you know, you are able to hang like bike bags and stuff in here. So that is a pro. So kind of depends on the way you look at it and how you plan on utilizing these side panels.
But I do like the ability to like grab gear off the side of the truck, which is great. And my last con on this list, and this is more my problem, not really a camper problem, but with the camper on, I can't fit in the garage. Which sucks. If I had my rooftop tent still, I would have no problem parking in the garage. Because I cannot park in the garage, the camper has been outside, unfortunately, which the sun is no joke. I have been seeing some discoloration on the camper, so everything should be black on the outside, right? So we got black on black on black all over the vehicle. You know, number one is these panels. I don't know if the camera's gonna be able to do it justice, but you can just see here that it's like the ionization on the panels, like it's coming off, and you can also see right here, see how it's like purple? I'll have to get some B-roll of this, but yeah, it's just not looking good. And you can see inside of here. So it's definitely getting discolored, unfortunately. And things are just, you know, getting beat up outside. Not great. The sun's ruthless though. I mean, what can I do? People have mentioned like, oh, you can, you know, lower your tires so that you can park in the garage. Ain't nobody got time for that. I'm not gonna refill my tires every morning when I'm trying to leave. So what I've been doing though is I do have some wheel covers on my tires now. So I got little tire covers, and I always put our screens up as well so that, you know, you can kind of like hopefully help the inside from not getting torched by the sun. And most likely what I will be doing next year is getting a really, really big, you know, SUV tarp so that I can just cover the entirety of the truck. Especially if we are gone for multiple days, or, you know, if we're out traveling, just cover up the truck and hopefully help the paint, the camper, everything just be a little bit more protected from the sun. It's just, you know, the desert's rough out here. The sun is serious, it scorches things, and unfortunately it's discoloring the camper. It's hard to catch it on camera, so you can kind of see it right there, but not great, for sure. Very, very unfortunate. So yeah, my final con, camper discoloration, but it's really just due to our environment, so it's not really something I think GFC, you know, was probably anticipating. They're from Montana, so obviously that's probably not a huge issue there. That is the conclusion of my pros and my cons list. If you guys have any questions, leave them down below. My final thoughts. Would I buy this camper again? And the answer is yes. At $6,800 that I paid for this camper 3 years ago, yes, it was definitely well worth it to me, especially this camper being the only option I really had for 2012 Nissan Frontiers, 5-foot beds. I would definitely buy it again for that price. But today, in 2025, with so many other camper vendors out there, you can hear that. So this is what I'm talking about whenever it's windy out and you're trying to sleep and you hear this. You can see it right here. Might have to close those flaps. This day and age, with how many other campers are on the market now, with campers that have a lot more features on them as well, you know, I don't know if I would necessarily go with the GFC again today. There's just a lot more out there. You know, if you're looking at like something like this, definitely check out like Pack Out Campers, local Las Vegas, shout out to Jags. There's just a lot more campers out there on the market. And yeah, like I mentioned, my truck was the 4th Nissan Frontier that had a camper like this installed. And so there just wasn't a lot to choose from, you know, 3 years ago. So I just priced it out yesterday. It's September of 2025. A camper like mine with all 3 windows, because you do have to pay per window for the 3 sides. For 3 windows, the install fee, the base model of the camper, and that's pretty much it. The total, I believe, would come up to over $9,000. I think $9,200 exactly. The base model itself, I think they were advertising it at, you know, $8,900, but technically it's not, because you need to install it. You need to have them install it usually. So you are looking at about $9,000. But with the market these days, there's so many new campers coming out, especially that are like this, like the wedge style tent where you can stand in the bed. There's just a lot of camper vendors out there. So you might find some better value out there based on, you know, your price and your priorities with something like this. And honestly, if, you know, we camp a lot, you know, we do. Like, we camp at least
3 to 4 times a month. If you are a once a season camper, maybe once or twice a summer, I wouldn't even pay $9,000 for this. I would just get a rooftop tent and call it good, just to make it easier to set up and take down. And shoot, even ground tents, stay tuned, I got a video coming up with this. Ground tents are awesome. There's like some really cool ground tents that the setup is like nothing. And I love sleeping on a cot with a sleeping bag setup, being able to stand up fully in a tent and be able to base camp with a tent. There is a lot of pros to that type of setup. So don't drop 9 grand on something like this if you do not camp that much. People message me all the time. It's like, oh, is it worth it? The first question out of my mouth is, how much do you camp a year? If you camp less than 5 times a year, less than 10 times a year, do not buy a $10,000 camper like this. I mean, what is the point? You might as well just take the time, set up a ground tent. It's going to be way, way cheaper, especially if you don't camp at all. Don't go into this. Test out your camping abilities first. Test out whether or not you even like doing this type of stuff first. Don't drop 9 grand on something like this out of the gate. It's not for you. If you're not already doing this type of thing, on your own, having a camper like this and you're ending up using it twice a year, save your money. Just save it. I'm telling you. But yeah, so I'm not sure if I would actually buy the GFC again today at the current price point that it's at. In conclusion, would I buy the GFC again, in this day and age and with these prices? Probably not. I would definitely be looking elsewhere, but it really depends on your priorities and your budget and, what you are really looking for in a camper. So do your research. This is my experience with this camper, how we've been using it over these last few years, which we do pretty extended long road trips and we do a lot of overnight trips. So definitely check out the channel if you guys are brand new. My name is Caden. Check out the channel. There's a ton of camping content, traveling, cooking. We like to eat. We like good food and just exploring around the Southwest. Someone actually messaged me the other day and asked if I didn't buy the GFC today, what else would I buy? So let me start off by talking about what things I would look for in a different camper. So number one, because now that we've had so much experience with a wedge tent, moving forward, if I were to get a different camper, I would get a fully pop-up tent. So where all 4 sides pop up. The GFC is great for, 1 to 3 to 4 overnight trips. But for extended road trips like the ones that we've done when we've gone to Colorado, to California, to Southeast Arizona, when we do 7+ days of traveling and living out of the camper, it would be really nice to have a little bit more space. And by having all 4 of the sides pop up, you definitely would get a little bit more space, especially with our 5-foot bed. We're trying to utilize the space as best as we can. So by having the 4 pop-ups, it just gives us a lot more space to be able to hang out in the truck bed. So if someone could be in bed still and the other person could be walking around inside the truck, being able to stand up fully, you can get out of bed easily without having to disturb the other person. The full pop-up is something that's been on my mind a lot more recently. So this setup is great for me, single person, right? But when you have the wife, you have a dog, if you have little kids maybe, it just gets a little bit cramped in here. So having the 4 pop-up would be really, really nice. The other thing I would look for is something that had more options. So one thing I really, really want to do is add a fan to the top of the tent. So a camper that had that option to be able to add a fan just to help with airflow and condensation and just keeping the tent cool, that would be great. Another option I would love to see is if we could open up maybe one of the panels. So if you could open up maybe a side panel with a bug screen, that would be awesome, so that you can kind of look out on the side panel versus over here you only have the one window, but there's no way to, just open it with a bug net. So the truck bed is not dog friendly because we can't open it without opening the sides fully. So it'd be great if we could have some windows on the panels so that we could let some airflow in there if we were to leave Rio in the back of the truck. Obviously not for extended periods of time and when it's not hot, obviously. But something like that where you have those options would be great. The other thing I would look for is something with a thicker bed area so that we could store bedding, all of our bedding inside the truck, so we don't have to carry an extra rucksack around with us whenever we are trying. Okay, trash man's coming. Be right back. Definitely a thicker bed area so that we could store all of our bedding inside the camper or inside the tent area so we don't have to be carrying around an extra rucksack everywhere with us. Obviously better bug screens and better windows on this tent so that you can easily open up the windows whenever you want without letting bugs in while you're trying to open up your windows. I'm pretty sure this is very specific to GFC though, with how crappy these windows are. And then finally, one more thing that I want to mention is something that is weatherized. So I have seen those campers that are all encompassing, right? Where it's a full shell that goes into your truck bed so that it is completely weatherproof, which is great. Being in the desert, we get a lot of dust, we get a lot of dirt. And so it's not ideal to have holes in your truck bed that let dust and dirt and crap in your camper. So that would be ideal as well. But again, that's really more my truck than anything. And that is pretty much it. Those are really some of like the big wants that I would be looking for if I were to upgrade to a different camper. And I have been doing some research on alternative campers within budget and that check some of the boxes of some of the things I just mentioned to you guys. So the budget that I would be looking at is like 12,000, max 15,000 at the highest. But some campers that I have seen are the Topo Topper Rincon version, which is a very, very sleek camper. What's really cool about that though is that it has side flares on the camper itself so that you can potentially sleep from east to west, which is awesome. That way you can utilize more of the bed in the front of the camper to be able to like sit. You can have someone sleep there while the other person could be hanging out in the truck bed itself. Really cool option. And I believe those ones start off at about 11,000 or 10,000 or something like that. So the Rincon would be a really cool option. And they are based out of California. The other one that I've seen is called Overland Campers out of Flagstaff. The camper version that I'm looking at for them is called Bread and Butter. Their camper is definitely a little bit more industrial, not as nice looking, I would say, as the Rincons and the Topo Toppers. That one is just super sleek and really, really nice. The construction on it looks really good. So the Bread and Butter camper is definitely more like industrial. It's a worker kind of camper is what it looks like, but it's highly customizable. So you can kind of like do what you want inside the shell of the camper itself. Full pop-up. And you are able to sit up. So whenever it is fully popped up, one issue that I've heard is that usually with the full pop-ups, you can't sit up in bed. But with the Bread and Butter, there is ample space in that pop-up for you to fully sit up with that fully popped up, which is really cool. And the last camper that I did see, and this is not really it's not a full pop-up camper, and you can actually even sit up all the way in it. But one that it was really intriguing to see was the Moonlander. Really, really cool camper, but I don't know if it would work well with a 5-foot bed. I think it would be really cool for an extended bed or like a full-size truck bed, just because then you'd have a lot more space to move around within the Moonlander itself. Because what you can essentially do is make like a couch in there so you can sit down in there. You don't have to worry about, tent flaps or anything flying around or any type of setup like that. Essentially like a cab over for your truck bed, where, you just sleep in there, you can, hang out in there, sitting down. You can't stand up fully though. I think it tops off at about like 4'7" or something like that. But it also depends on your truck bed. My truck's paid off, so we're keeping the truck around for the foreseeable future at this point. These campers that I just mentioned all have options for the 5-foot Nissan Frontier beds though, so that is a huge plus. 2012 Nissan Frontiers, not the brand new ones that everyone has been creating campers for these days. It's about time Frontiers have gotten some love out in the overlanding space and in this mini camper space, And the last camper vendor that I have been looking at is the Scout campers. So they came out with a fully pop-up Scout camper. Those things look really cool, and they are fully enclosed as well. So like I mentioned, if your bed isn't the most weatherproof like mine, having something that's fully enclosed like that so that, dust and crap don't get into your camper or in your camping gear, the Scout campers, definitely fit that bill. But those campers are also $25,000, which is crazy. It pretty much costs more than this truck. And so that's definitely out. I'm not paying that much money for a mid-sized camper like that, unless we're going full-time, which will never happen. But, and obviously there's also like the 4-wheel campers. That's also another option. But again, those 4-wheel campers are also $25,000 and plus. You know, it's like 19. I think the base model is like 20,000 for the ones that fit on the mid-size bed. But I did check their website actually. 4-Wheel Campers do not make campers for the 5-foot Nissan Frontiers, so that one's out. But that one is the most popular though. So those 4-wheel campers that, you know, pop up fully. But yeah, so that is all I have for you guys today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. If you guys have any questions, leave them down below. And let me know, would you guys buy the Go Fast camper in this day and age today? Let me know down below. Let me know what you guys' thoughts are. If you guys have any questions, hit me up. My Instagram is somewhere. I'll leave it here, but be sure to follow me on that. Thank you guys for watching. Like, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks.